My name is Naomi Fletcher. I'm 27 years old, and until a few months ago, I thought my life was finally normal. I had moved to Chicago, got engaged, and even landed a job I loved at a design firm. But everything changed the day I got a letter from a lawyer I never heard of informing me that my grandmother's house, the one I hadn't visited in over 19 years, had been left to me. That house was in Ashridge Hill, a quiet, mist-covered town in Maine I hadn't thought about since I was 8, but it's not the town I was afraid of. It was the house. The last time I was there, something happened, something I blocked out. All I remember is waking up in the woods alone, barefoot, and crying. Everyone told me it was just sleepwalking trauma, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. Still, I returned for closure, for answers, for peace, but what I found in that house was none of those things. And if you want to understand what happened, what's still happening, you need to watch this story until the very end. Please subscribe, like, and share this channel. It helps more people hear the truth, because I don't think I was the only one, and I don't think the house is done yet. This story is written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries. When I first arrived back in Ashridge Hill, the air already felt heavier. It was mid-September, but the trees were bare, as if autumn had stripped them early. Out of fear, I drove up the long gravel path, tires crunching like bones beneath the weight of my curiosity. The house came into view, and it was exactly how I remembered it. 3 stories high with broken shutters, a collapsed side porch, and windows so dark they looked painted. But the worst part? The front door was already open. My grandmother died months ago, and no one had lived here since I stepped out of the car, slowly, heart pounding louder than my footsteps. There was a faint humming coming from inside, like a lullaby played on broken piano keys. I paused at the threshold, remembering the nightmares I had as a child, the ones with the staircase that twisted mid-step, the woman in white standing just behind the curtains, the boy in the basement who never opened his mouth but always screamed. I thought they were just dreams. Now I wasn't so sure. Inside, the house smelled like rotten roses, a combination I'll never forget. Every wall was lined with crooked family portraits, faces I didn't recognize yet. All of them looked like they were watching me. I found the key to the attic hanging from a hook in the kitchen, even though I didn't remember there ever being a 3rd floor. My grandmother had always told me, the house only shows you what you're ready for. At the time, I thought she meant metaphorically. But now, I felt it literally. I didn't go to the attic, yet something was drawing me to the basement. I hadn't been down there since that night. The door was swollen with age. I had to throw my shoulder into it to open it. A cold gust of air rushed out, colder than outside, colder than any natural chill. It felt like breathing in a grave. The steps creaked like they remembered me. As I descended, I felt a presence I can't describe, not evil, not kind, just waiting at the bottom. Everything was covered in dust except one thing, a child's shoe. My shoe still covered in mud from that night, still torn at the heel. Still, I reached for it with shaking hands, and that's when I heard it whisper close, right behind me. You came back. I turned around and there was no one there, but I could see something moving in the far corner of the basement. A shape too tall for a person, too still to be alive. My flashlight flickered, my breath turned to frost. Then I heard footsteps above me, but I was alone, wasn't I? I ran up the basement stairs as fast as I could, not daring to look back. Every step felt like something was just inches behind me, ready to grab my ankle and pull me into that cold, wet dark. When I reached the top, I slammed the door shut and pushed a chair against it. I stood there, catching my breath, hands trembling. My ears rang with that voice, you came back. The words didn't sound angry. They sounded satisfied, like the house had been waiting for me. I should have left right then, driven back to Chicago, burned the deed, vanished. But I didn't, because part of me needed to know, needed to remember. I walked into the hallway and something felt wrong. There was a door at the end of the corridor, a door that wasn't there before, old wooden, slightly cracked in the middle. I know this house, I know every hallway, every room. That door had never been there, and yet I couldn't ignore it. My feet moved without thinking. The doorknob was ice cold, and as I turned it, I felt something shift inside the house, like the walls exhaled. Behind the door was a staircase going up, but I was already on the top floor. There shouldn't be an upstairs. There never was. Still, I climbed. The steps were steep and narrow, almost as if they were built for someone smaller. The air thickened the higher I went, and the light dimmed until I was surrounded in a smoky gray haze. At the top, another door, no handle, just a latch, and carved into it in tiny scratchy letters were the words, "Do not open unless you remember." I don't know why, but I whispered, "I remember," even though I didn't. Thought I did. Locked by itself, the door creaked open, and inside was me, not a mirror, not a dream, a little girl 8 years old, barefoot, crying, sitting on the floor, holding a porcelain doll, the same one I used to carry. She looked up at me, Eyes hollow. You left me here, she said. You promised you'd come back. My legs buckled. I had to hold on to the doorframe to stay standing. I whispered, that's not possible, but she shook her head. They split us, that's how they feed. She stood up slowly, and for a second, we merged. I saw what she saw that night, the attic door opening on its own, the woman crawling from the ceiling. Backwards with too many arms, the man made of shadows kneeling beside her, whispering secrets into her ear. Way I screamed, and everything went dark. I forgot because they took it from me. They didn't want me to remember because memory is power. The girl me grabbed my hand and led me to the far wall of the room. There was no wallpaper, no paint, only carvings, hundreds of names. Some were scratched out all female at the bottom of the wall. My Naomi Fletcher untouched below it. Unbroken. I turned to her. What does this mean? She didn't answer. Instead, she began to fade, not like a ghost, but like fog, and before she vanished completely, she whispered, they'll come again tonight. Didn't sleep, didn't listen. Then she was gone. Blinked and the room disappeared. Toei was standing in the hallway again, staring at a blank wall, no door, no staircase, no proof. But I knew what I saw, and I knew now. This wasn't just a haunted house, it was a prison, and the prisoners were parts of me. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with every light on, gripping the music box. I found under the floorboards the one that played itself without being wound, and at 3:13 a.m., I heard them footsteps upstairs, whispers in the walls, crying. From the basement, the house was moving again, breathing again, feeding again, and I was still here at exactly 3:13 a.m., just like the night before. I heard it, not footsteps, not whispers, just knocking, 3 sharp knocks. They echoed through the entire house. Not from the front door, not from the basement, from the walls. I sat frozen on the living room, couch blanket pulled around me, holding the music box like it was a weapon. The knocks came again 3 times, then silence, then 3 more, then a giggle. A child's laugh. It came from directly behind me, but when I turned around there was nothing there. My breath caught. Every instinct told me to run, but I knew if I moved I'd lose track of it. I'd let it in. He stood slowly, every floorboard groaning. Under me, the knocking had stopped, but the air had changed, heavier, wetter, like the entire house was holding its breath. I looked at the living room mirror across from the fireplace and saw something in it that made my blood run cold, a shadow tall and crooked standing in the hallway. But when I turned to look, the hallway was empty. I looked back at the mirror and it was closer. Not walking, not moving, just blinking closer with each glance, like it only existed when I wasn't watching it. I turned on every light. I even opened the front door just to remind myself I could still leave, but I couldn't bring myself to step outside. That's when the air shifted again and I realized the music box was playing. I hadn't touched it. It was open, turning, singing. The song was different this time, slower, broken, almost like a warning, and on the lid, written in dust that hadn't been there before, were 3 words. Let them in. My chest tightened. I threw the box across the room. It hit the wall and shattered, but the music kept playing. I screamed, begged whatever was in the house to stop. I covered my ears, but the moment I did, I heard them whispers behind the walls, just like the name of the story, and they were chanting. 3 knocks to open, 3 names to keep, 1 girl to carry. I collapsed to the floor, and that's when I saw the door was open again, the door at the end of the hall, the one that wasn't there before, only this time there was someone standing. An Ida woman, tall, pale, wearing a long black dress, her head tilted slowly, her mouth stitched shut, but her hands, oh God, her hands were made of children's hands, dozens of them, all moving independently, twitching, grasping at the doorframe like they wanted to reach me. Couldn't scream, I couldn't breathe, and then she raised one of those hands and knocked on her own forehead once, twice, 3 times. The lights exploded, the walls cracked, the air roared, and I passed out. When I woke up, it was morning. Sunlight was pouring through the broken windows. The music box was gone, the mirror was shattered, and the wall where that door had been smooth, empty, white, like it had never existed. But there was something new, a small piece of paper on the floor beside me, torn, yellowed, written in childlike handwriting. We knock so you remember, we knock so you open, you are the 3rd name, and at the bottom, my name carved in blood. I didn't sleep after that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the knock, not from outside, not from memory, from inside my skull. As if whatever had touched me now lived in the hollows of my thoughts. I stayed in the kitchen all morning, surrounded by sunlight and noise. Anything to drown out the quiet. That's when I decided to search my grandmother's old belongings, hoping I could find something, anything that explained what this house really was. Her room had always been locked growing up. Now I had the key. The moment I stepped inside, the scent of wilted roses and burnt sugar filled my nose. Her room hadn't been touched in years. Dust covered everything except a large cedar trunk at the foot of the bed. I opened it, and what I found inside shattered what little piece. I had left dozens of old letters, bound in twine black and white photos, and a journal. My grandmother's handwriting, elegant and tight, filled every page. The entries weren't dated like a normal diary. They were ritual logs, descriptions of symbols, chanting patterns, instructions for containment and silencing. And then I found a section labeled "The Three Girls." The house requires three, always three: one to hear, one to forget, one to open. I was the first. I heard the voice in the well, my sister Miriam. Forgot, but Naomi. Naomi's the opener, the last, the one the house calls home. My hand shook as I turned the pages. My name was written again and again, sometimes circled, sometimes underlined, sometimes surrounded by drawings of eyes, mouths sewn shut, children holding dolls. My grandmother had known all this time. She knew the house would come for me. She didn't try to stop it, she just waited for it to happen. I dropped the journal and stepped back. That's when I noticed the mirror above. The dresser was cracked, not shattered, just a single crack down the center. But what I saw in it made me scream. Behind me, standing in the hallway, were two girls. One had her hands over her ears, the other had her eyes rolled back, and in front of them was me, but not the current me, the 8-year-old me holding the porcelain doll. They were the three, the one who hears, the one who forgets, the one who opens. I turned around, nothing was there, but in the mirror they stayed watching. Waiting. That night the door reappeared, the one at the end of the hallway, the one that vanishes by daylight. This time it was already open, and inside I heard my grandmother's voice, "Come, Naomi, it's your turn." I wanted to run, but my legs betrayed me. I walked into the room and the door slammed shut behind me. The air grew cold, the wallpaper peeled itself off the walls. Candles lit themselves one by one, revealing a massive spiral drawn on the floor in black wax, and at its center my grandmother. But not how I remembered her. She was younger, pale, her eyes were completely white, and she was humming that same broken lullaby from the music box. "You made it," she said. "They've been waiting." I asked her, "What are they?" She looked up and whispered, "Family." The walls cracked, voices poured out. Hands, children's hands, reached from the wallpaper, clawing the air, reaching for me. "They are what's left of us," she said. "Of every girl who failed to open the way," I screamed. "But..." She only smiled. "You're the last name, Naomi. You finished the door. You are the key." Then the room exploded in light, and when I opened my eyes, I was in the attic only. It wasn't dusty or dark. It was alive. Veins pulsed through the wooden beams. The floor was soft and breathing, and in the center of the attic was a cradle. Inside it, a child, silent, trapped in a black cloth, eyes open, but mouth sewn shut. I approached slowly. The closer I got, the louder I heard the voice inside my head. "Say the name, complete the chain." I didn't say it. Instead, I reached down and cut the thread from the child's mouth. The house screamed. Every window shattered, every mirror cracked, the walls bled, the air ignited, and the child opened her mouth and said my name, Naomi. And then I remembered everything from that night. 19 years ago, the blood, the ritual, the failed attempt to use me, and how my grandmother tried to silence me before I could finish the door. She failed. But now the door is open, and I don't know if I closed it in time after the cradle scene. After I cut the thread from the child's mouth and heard her speak my name, I blacked out. When I woke up, I wasn't in the attic anymore. I was outside, lying in the overgrown grass behind the house. It was morning. My arms were scratched, my shirt torn. There were muddy, child-sized handprints across my legs. But the house looked normal. Quiet sunlight reflected off the windows like nothing had happened, but I knew I felt if the door was open, not physically, but spiritually, whatever was on the other side had found a way in. And it didn't need creaking floors or slamming doors anymore. It could walk through mirrors, through memories. Through me. The first sign was the shadows, not my own, but extras, ones that didn't belong. I saw them behind me in reflections, following me across the room, bending the wrong way with the light. They lingered for seconds, longer than they should have. The second sign was the mirrors. I stopped seeing myself instead. I saw her, the stitched-mouthed woman, closer, each time her dress darker, her arms multiplying like branches reaching through glass. Then came the whispering, not in my head, in my phone, in the pipes, in the radio. "Static, it's time, Naomi, let us through." I tried to leave packed. A bag got in my car, started the engine, but the GPS wouldn't load. Every road on the map vanished. Even when I drove blind, every turn led me back to the same gravel path. I was trapped. Not by the house, but by the choice I made. The door couldn't be unopened, but maybe it could be closed. I returned to the attic that night. The cradle was gone, but the spiral, the ritual mark, was still scorched into the floorboards. I followed the edges with my fingers whispering the same chant I'd seen in my grandmother's journal, something like 3 for the gate, 3 for the skin, 1 for the voice, 1 to begin. The wind howled, the windows blew open, and from the walls they began to step out one by one children, girls, all of them, some barefoot, some burned, some sewn at the mouth like dolls. And behind them, the woman in black, her head bent sideways, eyes rolled back, her hands twitching like puppets on string, but they weren't here to hurt me, not yet. They circled me, their mouths opened, but only silence came out. Then together they spoke without speaking. You called us, you opened the gate, you must give us a name. I whispered, what name? They stepped closer. The one you buried, the one she tried to hide. Then I understood my name wasn't Naomi, or at least not fully. In my grandmother's journal, there was one name always scratched out, blurred, marked with wax and ash. I dug into the trunk again and found the birth records. Hidden beneath false documents was a certificate. Born, Naomi Blackwell Fletcher. Mother, Miriam Fletcher. Deceased, father, unknown, but below it written in red ink, down to the third housekeeper of the split, name, Naira. That was the name, my true name, the one given before the rituals began. I whispered it aloud, Naira, and the room went silent. All the children stopped moving. The woman in black dropped to her knees, and behind me a new door appeared, small, wooden, glowing. Faintly I walked toward it. Say the name again, the girls whispered, Naira. The door creaked open, and what I saw behind it wasn't fire or ghosts or horror. It was me, an older version, standing in a field, smiling free. She looked at me and whispered, this is what happens when you finish the story. Then she vanished and the door slammed shut behind me. When I turned around, the attic was empty again, but carved into the spiral, now freshly burned. One name given, one life returned to remain, and for the first time, I understood the door didn't just release them, it released me. The morning after the vision, I walked out of the attic, not knowing what was real anymore. The mirrors were silent, the whispers were gone. Even the old staircase didn't creak like it used to, but in my chest I felt it, a pull, a calling. Something had changed. The house no longer needed to scare me, now it needed me to understand. I went to the library, a dusty little room hidden behind a false panel in the hallway, and found dozens of books my grandmother had collected over the years, journals, ritual scripts, histories of binding and bloodline lore, and in one brittle leather-bound notebook, I found the truth behind the 3 names. The door requires 3. Read, one who opens, the body, one who forgets, the mind, one who listens, the voice. Together they create the split, a vessel for crossing. Naomi was the body, but now I needed to find the mind and the voice. That night, I dreamt of fire, Ashridge Hill burning, and in the center of the flames stood a woman older than me with silver eyes and burns crawling up her throat. She didn't scream, she hummed the same lullaby from the music box. I woke up with blood dripping from my ears, the song still echoing inside my head. The voice she had found me traced the song back to an old room in the basement, one I had never opened. It was behind a bricked-up wall. I could feel the humming behind it like a heartbeat. I smashed through it with a rusted pipe. Dust exploded into the air. Behind the bricks I found a nursery. Perfectly preserved toys still in place, mobile still spinning. And on the crib a name tag, faded but still readable, Miriam, my mother, the one I was told had died during childbirth. But this nursery, it hadn't aged, and inside the crib, covered in cobwebs and dried roses, was a bundle. Inside the bundle, a small shriveled body holding a cassette tape. I played the tape, and my mother's voice came through. If you're hearing this, it means you've found the truth. I'm not gone. I was taken. They needed my voice, my song, to soften the walls, to call them through, but I resisted. I buried my voice in you, Naomi. No, Naira, you were my vessel, not theirs. Finish it, free me. Her voice broke at the end into static, but beneath it, I could still hear the lullaby, and then I heard something new, a second voice. One more, Naira, the mind, she's waiting, find her before they do. The tape ejected by itself. I turned, and in a doorway stood a girl in a hospital gown, eyes glassy, hair wet. She looked no older than 10, but I knew her, the one who had forgotten, the one I'd seen in the mirror beside my younger self. Mine. She raised her hand and pointed toward the mirror in the nursery. I approached it slowly, and for the first time I didn't see a reflection. I saw a room, sterile fluorescent lights, a padded floor, and in the center an older woman strapped to a bed, mouth open, eyes blank, humming to herself. A hospital tag hung from her wrist. Patient 003 name withheld. I gasped. That was her, the second name, the mind. They hadn't killed her. They'd locked her away to keep the ritual alive, to stop the split from sealing, but now that I'd opened the door, they were going to come for her unless I got there first. The Moment I touched the mirror in the nursery, the glass didn't crack, it dissolved, a slow, silent ripple like black water pulling me inward. I fell through screaming into cold white light. I woke up inside a hospital hallway, sterile flickering lights. Walls humming with static and whispers. There were no people, no nurses, just shadows, shapes watching from corners, never blinking. I walked barefoot past locked doors, each one marked with a Roman numeral. I stopped at the third. 3 inside. She was strapped down, the same girl from the mirror, now older, her skin pale, mouth slightly open, whispering a song she didn't remember. I placed my hand on the glass, and suddenly she looked at me, not confusion, not fear, recognition. Naira. She whispered, "You found me," and behind me I heard a familiar voice. My mother's, the voice now fully alive in the space between worlds. She forgot because I made her forget. It was the only way to save her. I turned to see her, not the decayed figure from the past, but alive, whole, glowing like she was made of embers and moonlight. "Now you must help her remember." I placed my forehead to the glass and whispered the words. Etched into the cradle, etched into the journal, etched into my soul. 3 for the gate, 3 for the skin, 1 for the voice, 1 to begin. And suddenly the walls cracked, not from force but from memory. All the doors flew open, and every shadow I had seen, every face I'd feared walked forward, but they were not monsters, they were girls like me, like her, each one a victim of the ritual, forgotten, abandoned, locked in rooms. Not made of wood but of silence. We held hands, and as we did the room began to collapse, not in destruction but in truth. The world around us rewound itself, pieces of our lives returned. The stitched-mouthed woman shattered into dust. The black-veined spiral melted from the floors. The house was undoing, and then standing in the nursery once again. I held both their hands, the voice, the mind, and me, the body, the 3 who were broken, the 3 who now stood whole. The cradle burned away, the mirror turned to light, and then the house screamed, not in pain but in defeat. The door in the hallway, the one that always vanished, appeared one final time. But now it looked different, small, harmless, like a memory I no longer feared. I reached for the doorknob, turned it, and this time on the other side was nothing, no shadows, no cold, just dawn. The ritual was broken, the house was empty, and as we stepped out, the entire structure behind us collapsed inward, vanishing into earth, as if it had never existed at all. No fire, no smoke, just peace. That was 1 week ago. I've changed my name legally. I'm no longer Naomi Fletcher. I am Nira, daughter of Miriam, survivor of the split, and I live free now, without whispers in the walls, without shadows at my back. But sometimes, when I pass by mirrors that haven't been cleaned, I swear I see the door again, just faintly waiting, but it won't open again. Not for me, not ever. Written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries. What did you love most about the story? Was it the mystery? The supernatural? The family curse? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and if you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe, like, and share this video, because somewhere out there, another house is still listening. Stay safe, stay curious, stay loud, and remember, a house is only haunted when no one remembers what lives inside it.